Hey, it's Kabir, and you're watching episode 1 of Tech Myths Busted, where I debunk common myths about technology. So, over the years, there have been various beliefs regarding the use of consumer electronics, but as the tech got more advanced, they were just no longer applicable. Today, I'm going to talk about 10 such myths, so let's get into it. The first and probably most widely believed myth is overcharging your smartphone battery. It's believed that leaving your phone plugged in for too long can make the battery overcharge and cause rapid degradation. And while yes, this was the case in the early days of phones, smartphones have been using lithium ion batteries for a very long time. These batteries have protection hardware that limit the flow of current into the phone after a certain amount of charge, so you have absolutely nothing to worry about. Besides, both Android and iOS devices have been getting software updates that allow for optimized charging. The way the optimized charging works is that using artificial intelligence, it learns your charging routine and only charges the phone to 100% when it thinks you'll unplug it. So it limits the charge to about 80% until it thinks you'll need the full charge, and then it charges from 80 to 100. So this helps in conserving battery health as well. But even if you don't have the optimized charging features, it's absolutely fine to leave your phone plugged in overnight. And while the battery will degrade slightly, it does so more as you're using the phone. So the difference is unnoticeable and batteries don't last forever anyway. 5G waves cause cancer.
कुछ भी कुछ भी
No, they don't. They are a higher frequency of radio waves, but they still fall under the non ionizing category along with microwaves and the regular cellular networks. So, no, they can't cause cancer and they do absolutely no harm to humans. Also, on a side note, 5G wasn't a cover up for COVID and it didn't cause COVID either. So, stop it.
Get some help.
Speaking of viruses, I've noticed people think that Macs can't get any, which isn't true. A virus can attack a Mac as well. It's just that it's much less likely to happen. You see, Windows has a much larger user base, so if I were to make a virus, I would obviously place Windows as my preference just because I have a higher chance of infecting computers. I'm sorry, doesn't feel right to say. So, since Mac has a smaller user base, there are much less viruses that can attack it in the first place. But I get why people have this belief. It's because of the privacy features that are built into Mac OS, but even those can't protect it from a virus. A higher megapixel count means you'll get a better image.
Wrong.
Well, no, not exactly. What really matters is the pixel quality, sensor size, and many other things, but most important of all, the image processing. That's the way that the device can handle colors, sharpness, resolution, and all the elements of the picture. The best way to showcase this is by taking an example of a DSLR versus a smartphone camera. Let's take an 8 to 12 megapixel DSLR versus a 64 megapixel smartphone camera. On paper, the smartphone should have twice the resolution of the DSLR, but that's nowhere near the case. The DSLR has a much bigger sensor, thus a much bigger pixel size, which allows it to produce a much higher quality, higher resolution image compared to the smartphone with its tiny sensor. And even if we compare just smartphones to each other, megapixel count doesn't really mean anything. What matters most, as I said before, is image processing. Because smartphones don't have the biggest sensors and not the greatest camera hardware to begin with, they need to use software and artificial intelligence to make the photos look better. And that's really what makes a difference to photos taken by a smartphone, not megapixel count. A larger file size means you'll get better audio or video quality. Well, this is sort of like the last point, and what file sizes really depend on is compression, And a smaller file can be much higher quality than a larger file that's not compressed properly or not compressed in the right codec for your device to play. A codec is basically, by definition, a program that encodes or decodes a digital data stream slash signal, basically MP3 or MP4, because all data that you transfer has to be compressed, and if it's not compressed in the right way for the service you're using to play, for example YouTube, it doesn't support certain codecs. If that's the case, then you're going to have a lower quality than a smaller file size that is compressed properly. Free apps. They're not really free.
Bruh.
Because you see, most free apps sell your data to advertising companies like Google and Facebook so that they can give you targeted ads. For example, if you search for something enough on Instagram, you're going to see ads about it on even on your Facebook feed. So the price you pay for free apps is actually your privacy. And that might sound creepy, but you've agreed to it in the terms and conditions that you never read. A larger battery capacity doesn't necessarily translate into more battery life. Although a bigger battery can hold more power, it doesn't mean you'll have a better battery backup. That depends on how it's being used by the operating system. So, a smaller battery on a well optimized OS can last much longer than a larger battery on a less optimized OS. A great example of this was the iPhone 11 Pro Max. With a 4000 milliamp hour battery, it lasted an hour more than its greatest competition, the Galaxy S21 Ultra, that had a 5000 milliamp hour monstrosity. This was in a recent battery test done by Mr. Who's the Boss, which I'll link in the description, so you can go check that out as well. Also, on a side note, in the same battery test, the Galaxy S21 Ultra lasted about 45 minutes longer than the iPhone 12 Pro Max. So Samsung has clearly made an improvement this year, but you get the point. Battery capacity is not equal to battery life. Closing background apps doesn't lead to better performance, and it's actually the other way around. You see, Android and iOS are smart enough to know when to do this, and the process happens automatically whenever your device needs extra performance. But if you're going to close the apps when they don't need to be, they're going to take a longer time to load when you reopen them because they're going to have to refresh everything. So, not closing background apps is actually the better thing to do. And you should close the apps only if you feel like your phone is being very unresponsive or you're never going to open these apps again. Is incognito mode a free VPN? Well, absolutely not. It isn't.
Psych! That's the wrong number!
All that incognito and private browsing mode do is not save your history, cookies, cache, and website data on your particular device and devices linked to your account. Incognito mode doesn't have the ability of encrypting traffic going from your device to your ISP's servers. Which is why if you really want to be secure and anonymous, you have to use an actual VPN. And to learn more about incognito mode, you should watch TechQuickie's video about it, which I'll link in the description. Last but not the least, it actually is kind of the least, because who jailbreaks in 2021? Anyway, if you don't know what I'm talking about, jailbreaking, as it's called on iOS, and rooting, as it's called on Android, is the process of gaining more control on your device than intended by the manufacturer. So you can unlock features that weren't originally in the software, but this process is illegal in some countries. So I don't have a definite answer for this, but honestly, you shouldn't jailbreak or root your device in 2021. But if you plan on doing so, make sure to check the law in your country. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more such content. Also, I'd appreciate all feedback in the comments. Since I'm just getting started, it would be nice to know what I'm doing wrong and what you'd like to see more of. So, thanks. Bye.